ladies and gentlemen, a few very brief but deeply necessary thank yous before we begin our final event. As anybody who has organised or attended an event so successfully and well run as this one, you know that countless jobs are assigned and done without thanks behind the scenes. A raucous round of applause at the end, please, for the following. Brian and his amazing team at the ETB, who have taken care of sound, vision, and all the technical aspects of the productions here in the Marion Hall. Amanda Carmody, Mary McGillicuddy, the wonderful Brenda Kennelly, and most especially the Flaherty family, William, Breda, and Aisling, and their extended family and network, who really were the boots on the ground for much of the making of this mighty weekend. So whether it was tea and coffee, food, sponsorship, chippings for the yard, where we were going to get a Portaloo, all those simple, unglorious, but deeply necessary things, we thank them for that, and I ask you to raise the roof in their honour.
Fionn and his band of warrior hunters, all of them poets, were sitting by the headwaters of the Blackwater in Sliabh Luachra, all of them at ease after a great battle fought and won yesterday, and before what they were sure would be the greatest of all boar hunts proposed for the morrow. A question, Fionn asked, each of us true to himself: what is the music we best like to hear in the world? The savage, beautiful music of an otter's face, Oscar said. The music of hounds, far off and foamy, just before the stag turns and stands at bay, Coilte said. The screech, the screech, the screech, the screech, the squawk, and the croak, croak, croak of a heron, overflying a mirroring inlet of the sea, Diarmid O'Doine said. A victory of wild geese, all broken up and braying at full height and at full flapping wingspan. All of this at the first touch of land, Conan Moyle said. A whole night in a cave, and, as though it had just invented hearing, the sound of a drop of water falling into a well that I too would have fallen into had I kept going, Oisin said. A curlew that has been 2 months away on her breeding ground, the first call of that curlew from her home shore in early August, Gall MacMorna said. The music of Cleana's wave washing its broken divinity over my bare feet, Louis Laya said. And you, Fionn? Oscar asked. What music most pleases you? The music of what happens, Fionn said.
Tachtom Chilishaga Huiginoch Tekedin Castle Haramoig Vanin Suasoch Torioch na Gauna Shaor Krume agus ceanna níhaí me go láco. Tá cranin chéirhin faoi bháin na coile seo, agus bai me John seo go lábháin. Be muidin arsaí ag bracú gealna maidin, agus ceomid na gauna máireach. Aioini bháile ó tairús ó bhaile chum, na bíoch agala ar teachtaim ó láthir. Is go deodeoir rachatú ar sáile, nuair is tú do leanach is a bháthir. Anis is tóidí nó an tógim ach buim, is ó tharla nach tú atá in an gham seo réite bógine, bhar do chuid mhéiris is tóidí nó mo chuaig céad is slán na leat.
Stíomháin nó stíile caiimiise an chincap seo faoin Silver Branch thinking a chur bhí bhráid. So in some way, it has been brought to me to explain or to try and convey this idea of the Silver Branch thinking to us. And I don't understand it, which is a problem. And none of us do, and none of us will when we leave this room. But John tries to explain it through the character of Bran. Like, so to give chuig Bran ashtar fada, diabhar a harlar. So Bran is this character recorded in stories from the 7th, 8th, and even the 9th century. And it says, Bran says, and it's interesting thinking of how Tommy started this on Sunday in the church. He says, Bran says, a strange thing happened to me one day. For the first time in my life, I felt a big inconvenient need to be on my own and silence. I wanted to know what that was like, at the cost of my people thinking that something was happening to me. I walked out and down and away from the wetlands. And yes, there was silence there and solitude, more of both of them than I felt I could take. It was hard on me. Anything I could hurl a spear at or take a sword at, I could deal with. But now, having beaten it back, having cornered it, could I now shove a sword in solitude? For the first time in my long warrior's life, I knew defeat. It was as if cupping my hand down into it, I had drunk defeat. Me defeated. Me defeated, not by Ferdia, but by solitude. Me defeated, not by Cuchulainn, but by silence. Would they see this in me, my people? Would they see that I had been defeated, it making no difference by what had got me? And what then of their continuing willingness to be led by me, to be ruled by me? Where normally I'd have turned for home, I turned today to come back and face insurgency. Then I listened downheartedly to the plashing of my feet in water as I walked. I heard it, this music, surely not of our world. Even my bones, even my mind, I thought it would melt. Turning round, I saw a silver branch. And it wasn't that it was making the music as a singer or a harpist might. It was the music. In its very being, it was the music. It threatened me in all that I was. Not laying a hand on me, it raided me. Listening to it, if what I was doing is listening to it, I died to all habits of I and mind in me. Listening to it for a moment, only for a moment, I mattered a little, as it mattered as little to me as I do every night in dreamless sleep. Not because it had mercy on me. It ceased. Eventually, enough of who and what I used to be came back to me, and I was walked home. So, in John's rather like kaleidoscopic way, he then deals with this idea of this silence that got Bran and what he was going to do with it. This first vague encounter with the silver branch, thinking from a different angle. And he says, almost the objective take. Soon, his walking and trudging, he heard music, not of our world, but beyond him. Turning round, he saw a silver branch. It was out of the music, it was out of it that the music came. Strangest of all, the branch didn't play it. What he heard was the branch being itself. Being itself, it had perils for mortals in it. And it raided him in the way that he himself would raid a triple-ditched ring fort. It raided him. It raided him, not with spear and torch and sword. With its unearthly sweetness, it raided him. Almost to swooning. Then it ceased. And by the time he came back to himself and opened his eyes, it was all gone. In his hall that night, amidst all the usual goings-on, Bran sat silent and alone, a hard man in battle, and in all his dealings with the world, it had never occurred to him that anything, either in this world or from beyond, could have so disabled him. Whatever else, the music had damaged him in his sense of himself and his people. When they came to know, it would damage him in their eyes. He imagined their great concern, Bran Macfowl, the hard man, not foremost in battle. Bran Macfowl, his eyes and his mind not fixed on what he was doing. Bran Macfowl made low, not by a sword stroke, but by longing. And sensing this sudden silence in the house, he opened his eyes, and there she was, a radiant woman, cruel if she needed to be. Now, according to the stories, this woman then began to sing the song of 50 quatrains. And I won't go into it, but she lured him out on there in Ashtar Moor Fadish Har Vadiga Har Soil Har Borochen. She lured him out on this great journey away from this world. Grian Sailella, the Tidella, Tras the Mog Mir, across the Mog Mill, the plain, the golden plain out to other realms. And when he was far enough away from this world, he meets up with Monadon MacLair. Martin Shaw, who was addressing us, last night and yesterday, was saying, we need to put ourselves into these stories. Where do we see us in these vast stories that make no sense? But Moriarty, with John, he has Bran out on the ocean, far away from Ireland, meeting Monadon MacLair, and Monadon begins a chant in older Irish, in tougher Irish. Again, this is recorded in an 18th century manuscript, and what's beautiful is we can just about understand it today in our schoolroom Irish, whatever, 1,200 years later. Cainní amra lassen mran, in a churchan har mur nglan, os me im charpad de chain is mag skoch in a reg. A noos mur glan, the ni brindog at habran, is mag mel, ko umut sko, dausa a haraput da ro. I'll translate those first two. Bran deems it a marvellous beauty in his coracle across the clear sea, while to me, in my chariot from afar, it is a flowery plain on which he rides about. What is a clear sea? For the proud skiff on which Bran is, that is a happy plain, which profusion of flowers. To me, from the chariot of two wheels. So he goes on and on like this, saying, the reality we see, this is Monanon, the sea god, Monanon Machlir, Monanon, the son of the sea. Basically, the sea god is the son of the sea. It's like turtles all the way down. It was sea, until it was nothing. And he says everything we see, he sees differently. We're just seeing a miasma. We are makeup. It's all make-believe. There's nothing. Don't believe our eyes. Don't believe our ears or our brain or our senses. Because Monanon is saying, when you see one thing, seahorses glisten in summer as far as Bran has stretched his glance. Rivers pour forth a stream of honey in the land of Monanon, son of Lir. The sheen of the main on which thou art, the white hue of the sea on which thou rowest about, yellow and azure are spread out. It is land and it is not rough. So it's either a dangerous, wavy sea or it's beautiful land. It all depends on your perspective. And so Moriarty then tries to bring us back again to this concept of the silver branch, that it is a concept that everything changes. Don't trust your reality. And he says, the instant we meet him, we know that eye and mind are habits of eye and mind. This is the minute that we see Monanon Machlir, any god force, any goddess, any divine force. The minute we encounter them, we know not to trust our eyes, agus gan un thiva in our agna, not to trust the mind. The instant we meet him, we know that the world we have lived was all along but a habit of seeing, a habit of knowing. The instant we meet him, we know that being human is a habit, and walking away, we know how shaken in that habit we now are. And how glad we are to be so shaken in this habit of being human, shaken in it, and at times shaken altogether out of it. To be human, when being human is a habit, we have now broken that. Then everything becomes a wonder. And when, as will happen, we take being human for granted, how good it is then to walk out of it and be a seal in the sea of Tory, a swan on Loch Jarrig Derek. And then Bran, who was just his tough, grizzled warrior, who had been broken by silence, and then his mind opened by the god of the sea, the goddess of the land, the divinity that lasts in everything. He goes back to his own druid and he has a conversation, according to Moriarty, according to Moriarty. He says, it's what Ireland means, Bran one day said to his druid. What? His druid asked. What does Ireland mean? It means what Monanon singing at sea means. Simply, it means. That's what Ireland is. It means, it is meaning. It means Silver Branch's perception of things in their Silver Branch being. And then the druid says, so then Ireland isn't for living in? And Bran asks, how so? And the druid says, how if I see in its Silver Branch being? How if I hear it in its Silver Branch singing in root and branch? Can I cut down a tree and make it a chariot? How if I see it in its Silver Branch being? How if I hear it in its Silver Branch lowing? Can I kill a yearling calf and eat it? A calf out at grass is Silver Branch thinking, says Bran. a calf slaughtered outside in our yard is Silver Branch being? Is Silver Branch singing in hoof and horn? A beef hanging from a cross beam here in our house is Silver Branch being? Is Silver Branch singing in hock and split chest? Whatever its condition of state, being is Silver Branch being. But yes, you're right. Altered perception must mean and will mean altered behavior. The sea being what it is in his perception of it doesn't deter Monanon from riding over it in a 4-horse chariot, the Druid said. So, asked Bran, so we might as well live in the world as it used to be. To talk about the world as it used to be is to talk about our eyes and our minds as they used to be. There's something profound going on there, and every time I read it, I have a different instinct. But every time I read it, I feel less certain being in this reality. Agus tam có buíoch go bhfuil le héadí seo in order ad siún, mar a háisiad in scaché an tradiisiún eile. I'm so grateful that we have this type of wide open thinking in our tradition, just as they are in every other tradition. Vida buíochas, agus buíochas.
We are talking about realizing our highest human possibilities. And what is wrong with that? What is wrong about emerging into a sense of wonder? What is wrong about the integration of deepest instinct and highest insight? What is wrong about Silver Branch perception? What is wrong about the road of ashes? What is wrong about metanoesis? What is wrong about a graduation from anthropos to deanthropos? What is wrong about a mystical ascent between the paps of Danu? What is wrong about the gap between those divine breasts being the ultimate gap into the ultimate Ireland? If the alternative is a republic such as we have now, what is wrong with an Ainflaw? What is so wrong about the democracy of royalty in Tara? What is so wrong about the royalty of everybody? Not institutional royalty, or royalty by coronation, but royalty that Conora and Cormac emerged into, the royalty of nature.
Worry not, my precious bee, for the time of angels is coming in. No, worry not, my little one, for the time of the light has begun. For the time of the light has begun. Worry not, my father, love your son, love your daughter. Worry not, child of grace, look your life straight in the face. Hey, worry not, your time has come. The time of angels has begun. As sure as I stand, as sure as I sing, there's a miracle waiting in everything. Worry not, mother of all that is, for what has been has yet to be lived. No, worry not, the dawn will come, and there'll be an answer for everyone. Yeah, there'll be an answer for everyone. Oh, worry not, don't stop walking on the land. Breathe the air, hold out your hands. Worry not, your truth is written in you. Fly like you were meant to. Hey, worry not, your time has come. The time of angels has begun. As sure as I stand, as sure as I sing, there's a miracle waiting in everything. Oh. Worry not, King of Kings. There's a new beginning in everything. Worry not, you know what to do, for the King is waiting inside of you. Try to defeat more
Hello. I feel I need an introduction. Nobody else here does, because you know them all so well already. My name is Grace Wells, and I describe myself as an eco-poet and environmental writer. And I'm very much in the tradition of John, who I was very lucky to meet. And I also work, I think really I'm kind of an activist for the earth and an activist for soul. I'm lucky to live in an estaimen where I work with Home Tree Charity, who are trying very hard to restore Ireland's wild Atlantic rainforest all along the west coast. Twice a month we have tree planting days, and I always begin those tree planting days by breathing with the group of people who've arrived. So I thought we might breathe together, which would help me to find my voice here today. John used to say, we now live in a nothing but culture. And once upon a time, I found on Lentech Industries' website this phrase, air is nothing but a mixture of a variety of gases. To which I responded, each seed head, each blossom offers perfume, colour, light. The ferns uncoil in the woods, the leaves unfurl on the trees, the fabric of the air changes. Place, like breath, is made of innumerate stitches, small threads of pine needle, the sticky brown tips on the chestnut tree, the minute red silks of scarlet pimpernel, and above them, airborne, the translucencies, insect wing, butterfly, moth, the petal-light grades of fragility, and water doing what water does, clearing, cleansing, cooling the air. So I thought we might just take a few breaths with the world that gives us our breath. So you're so welcome to close your eyes or lower your eyes if you're comfortable to do that. You might just breathe into your shoulders and breathe with the hedgerows. Just breathing into all those beautiful leaves, all the beautiful petals of the hedgerows that we all love so much. Then gently bringing your focus down to your ribs and letting your ribs open out to the sides of your body. And breathing with the trees. Breathing with the great forests of Ireland that you know and love. And then letting your breath come all the way down into your belly and your hips. Breathing with the oceans that give us so much breath. The oceans lapping up against this whole island. The waters of the world letting us breathe. There is a story I love that the eco-philosopher David Abram tells of wandering in the high Himalaya and coming upon some Buddhist monks waist high in a river. The monks are lifting wooden prayer blocks into the air and gently bringing them down onto the surface of the water, imprinting it with prayers that the river carries on downstream and out of the river mouth onto the ocean and across the waters of our world. Having heard this story, I go out of my door each morning and take 10 steps to the bank of the Ballymacraven River and the deep pool behind my house. I check the colour of its water, and in my own form of prayer, I say aloud words I often heard John Moriarty saying. All the rivers of Ireland have their source in an otherworld well. A hazel tree grows over it, and hazelnuts fall into the well's pool and are eaten by the salmon of knowledge. I check the river's pool each day because I live downstream from a water treatment plant that regularly releases chemical waste, which it is allowed to do by law. But last year, in some rabid cleaning out of tanks, they released so much toxin into the river that it suffered a large fish kill. So every day I check the pool and say the words of the myth in prayer. I say them for the hazel trees failing across Italy and Greece, those landscapes which once gave us so many myths. and I remind the Ballymacraven of the other world well, not just for its sake, but for all the rivers of the west where I live now, and for the rivers of the southeast, which were for so long my home, the Barrow, the Nore, and the Shore. And most especially, I repeat the words, the myth, for the salmon, that quick silver, rainbow-bodied fish that swims in sweet river water and in the wild salt ocean. For them, I name aloud the salmon of knowledge because it lives so deeply in the psyche of this place. It swims so deeply through the Dinshanicus of Ireland that nothing can argue with its truth. In the year I was born, 2 million salmon swam in Ireland's rivers, but only 170,000 survive now. So many problems these sacred fish face. The warming oceans, the sea lice from the fish farms, the silage and slurry effluent that kills the oxygen in the rivers, the herbicides that harm the salmon's sense of smell so they can't find their way home. All contributing to the new terrible myth I heard from the mouth of a marine ecologist in the sad days after the fish kill, that Atlantic salmon may not survive the next 50 years. John Moriarty used to say, when the animals leave, they take their medicine with them. My mind struggles as the salmon drain out of our world. So it soothes me to go each morning and speak with the river of its source. When the salmon leave their natal streams, they swim north for thousands of miles straight into the myths of the Greenland Inuit and into the myths of the Norwegian Sami people. They thread a great North Atlantic weave of story that John reminded us to keep telling. For John was clear that the legend at the heart of Western culture, the mandate of Genesis to subdue the earth, can no longer be our land ethic, should never have been. Across Asia, the Buddhists hoist prayer flags into the air so the wind blows their mantras of peace across the world. But in the river towns of Ireland, it is a myth that is put up into the sky. Copper salmon lifted up among the birds as weather vanes over the clock tower on Waterford's Quay and above the Thistle in Carrick on Shore and over the West Gate in Clonmel. And the salmon of knowledge swam in all our pockets once. For when Yeats chaired the committee for the Irish Free State's first coins, he fought to have the salmon leap on the back of the old florin. And with decimalisation, the salmon still tumbled on the back of every 10-pence piece, its symbol of wisdom in our hands as we bartered it for bread and milk. In Canada, the First Nation people say, a long time ago, they told us stories so we could learn how to become people. Once upon a time, all our stories came out of nature and place. For as my friend, the Kilkenny poet Paddy Doyle, likes to remind me, in Irish, the word for place, tua, is the same as the word for people or tribe. Here, people and place entwine around each other like tendrils of honeysuckle. And the stories tell us that we do not become fully human without the river, the hazel, or the salmon. And And if all the rivers of Ireland have their source in an otherworld well, and as people and place are one, then the people of this place also have their source in an otherworld well. So I go to the river each morning and speak with it of that. It was the Waterford fisherman, Eamon Duffin, who told me that when the salmon return from salt ocean to sweet river water, they must pause where the two waters meet. Too much sudden fresh water or too much sudden salt when they first leave these rivers in the spring, and the salmon would die. So they let themselves change with the changing water. They let themselves entirely transform from one way of being to another. I love the thought of those fish steady in the dark currents, gradually transforming as we too must, as we too are, so slowly, yes, but all around me I see the current of change moving through us, the salt legend of Genesis dispersing from our culture, the sweet water drawing us forwards towards an older sensibility, the voice of the otherworld well calling us back to our source. So I stand on the riverbank with my prayers and my myth, like so many other people who are even now standing on riverbanks all across our world, worrying for their waters. And I put my foot down on the blessed earth. I put my foot down for the blessed earth, just as Sive, the shining one, mother of all, once did at the beginning of the world, when she tumbled into the otherworld pool and fell through its waters down beneath the roots of the hazel trees, falling until she put her foot down on the earth that was not yet earth, that had then no promise of trees nor laughter of streams. And Sive took the earth into her keeping. She wove the land into a flourishing. She took the earth into her keeping, as John Moriarty did, as we all must, La Derrig and Dowan, until the end of time. Thank you.
The trouble with Cuchulainn was that in spite of his totemic name, he never once condescended to draw strength from nature. Anyway, a truth as deep as the well in which all the rivers of Ireland have their source has walked up a mountain road towards us in Kerry. Cú Roy's secret is everyone's secret. Thanks to Blahina, the secret is out. Thanks to Grace Wells, the secret is out. Of course, the fight between Cuchulainn and Cú Roy for the favour of a woman isn't only a fight between a young man and an old man. Phylogenetically, it is a fight between Cú and Cú, between wolf and wolf. More particularly, it is a fight between wolfhound and wolf, between a wolf that has capitulated to domestication and a wolf that hasn't. In this story, for those who can hear it etymologically, there is a terrible Ceol Chuaine, a terrible human Ceol Chuaine, and still in our day it echoes off the mountains of the peninsulas of Corcogaine and Kerry. We must not assume that the domesticated wolf, having won the first battle, has won the war. Coo Roy has survived, got her damerongs, and when he has mind to, wild wolf against tame wolf, he will take care of the upstart from Ulster.
Hello. My name is Kevin J. Power. I've been researching about and teaching about John for a few years now. And I want to talk a little about vocabulary, the voice he gives us as an Irish people in order to understand ourselves and speak ourselves to ourselves, and maybe a little about healing as well. But I want to start off just by mentioning something that happened far away, not in Ireland. Last year, with the help of Sacred Heart University in Connecticut, I got some funding to do a research trip to Manitoba, and ended up meeting some people who knew John and doing some archival research there. And I think several of us have at times felt the guiding hand of John on our journeys, and I've certainly had a few strange coincidences since I started reading about John and his life. But I just want to share one. I landed in Manitoba and I was walking down Pembina Highway that John would talk about in Nostos, just seeing what I could find, which turns out was very little. Flat landscape covered in snow at this time of the year. Now, some of you might know that John had a spiritual advisor from the Carmelites in Oxford called Norbert Cummins. So I was walking down this road, and all I could see was snow and the highway and this flat land and industrial buildings. And after a few minutes, I spotted a tree at the side of the road, and I just wanted to touch something natural. And I'm not even here a day, and I'm thinking John lived here for 6 years. And I'm touching the tree, and I think to myself, no wonder he needed to come back to shelter. The moment after I thought that to myself, I turned around and a bus was passing down the highway, and the destination on the bus was Saint Norbert. In my time in Manitoba, I found a few things, but I'd just like to read one that I think, in the spirit of the festival this weekend, there's a little precursor to this. 35 years ago, a family that I had the pleasure to meet, called the McKinnons. Brian McKinnon was a student of John's and was so impressed by him that he organised the series of lectures that John went back to give in Manitoba in 1989. I found a letter in the archive, a handwritten letter, and I'd just like to read a couple of short extracts from it. Dated January 7th, 1989. Dear Professor Cowie, trust you had a wonderful Christmas, and then some niceties. And, well, the Moriarty social is looming before us on January 21st. So we have a pile of social tickets which we have been actively dispersing between teaching and studying. As a consequence, you are being blessed with 10. Sell what you can. We should hear from Moriarty, I should think, within the next 3 weeks regarding when he will come. I wrote him only a week ago inviting him to come March 7th. I finally connected with Brian Curtis, and he was over for supper last Thursday. In hope that we can connect with more people regarding the social and beyond who knew Moriarty. See you at the Moriarty social. Best for 89, Brian and Margaret McKinnon. So one of the things that I think is notable about that is having never met John, I just go off what I hear through people who did know him. And being over there was no different from being over here in terms of the aura and the kindness and the great teaching of the man. It was as reflected in the environment there as it is here. So that's Manitoba. Now to Ireland. from Invoking Ireland. Seeking to know what it is, we have been talking about the Irish mind. Whatever else it is, it will not be forced married to current convention. It is passionate. So John was and remains a teacher, and all good teachers challenge us. He asks, does my society nourish me, or does it vampire me? And sometimes the very reason that we cannot pause to ask ourselves that question is the answer to the question itself. Our society can vampire us, draining us physically, emotionally, psychologically, running in accordance with a socioeconomic system which allows little or no time for stillness, for silence, for reflection. Within sight of Dorada West, where John lived, is Tumbiola, and there's an old ruin there. And in his book, Take Nothing for the Journey, the writer Donogh O'Shea talks about spending some nights there, and it's fascinating that he talks about this monastic site and the energy of the place, and sitting in the stillness and in the silence of the place, and thinking about living in the presence, whatever presence is left of the monks that would have lived in that area. And I don't know if Donogh knew John or not, but he says on the morning that he was leaving, there is a greater sadness in leaving a desolate place than in leaving a city. One's attachment to a city is often a superficial detail, but only essential attachments are possible in wilderness. All morning there has been a sense of mournful leave-taking. Never till now have I felt sad at leaving a mean thorn bush, or an overgrown cemetery, or a sedgy headland. Tumbiola will mean peace. Not the peace that comes when everything is excluded, but the peace that comes when everything is included. And I think perhaps there's a parallel here with our minds. So our civilized minds have to attach to processes that keep our society intact and keep it going, like small talk, diplomacy, conformity. But the wild mind attaches to more elemental forces, what Moriarty would call our soul outside of society. And in the same way that an explorer journeys to dangerous territory and reports back their findings, Moriarty journeys out of society in order to report back and show us not so much who we are, but who we have become. A movement, local people, a people generally fixated on short-term and surface-level pursuits. Sometimes there's no way to talk about this stuff without sounding judgmental, but Moriarty says mystics aren't popular. You know, they're diagnosing what's wrong with us, and we just have to face it sometimes. So in undertaking this journey, John became a participant in a vast, though obscure web of people from all over the world who have attempted to identify the ills of civilization by temporarily stepping outside of it. But he does so using a vocabulary that is native to Ireland, even though so many of us have experienced a disinheritance from that. And one of the great intellectual and cultural challenges he presents us with is the task of healing beginnings. How do you heal the past? Well, in the same way that an individual may revisit an early trauma in an attempt to confront it, to integrate it, and ultimately overcome its worst effects, perhaps a people can revisit their origin stories and confront and integrate the traumatic elements. From an interview with Maurice O'Keeffe, John says, how would you heal Irish history? How would you heal Ireland? How would you unite Ireland? I asked myself, do we in Ireland have a dreaming? Do we have a common dream time? And I find that we have. We have the old myths and the old legends and the old stories. And I went back down to those legends and stories that are there and have run simultaneously with history. And I went back down into that whole folk world, the world of folktale, the world of myth, the world of legend. And I wrote there. And I said, if we could be united in our dream time, in our dreaming, then we could be socio-politically united. I say, let's go below our troubled history altogether, down into our dream time, and see if we can be united there. And if we can be united there, sharing a common vocabulary, a common set of myths, a common set of legends, then we will be socio-politically united sooner rather than later. Just a quick note on this. I was thinking, what good is mythology when you're starving or homeless or living in a war zone? And I think it's probably very little use at all, but one of the things that John does, again, as a teacher, is to draw our attention to the role, the very important role and often overlooked role of stories as they relate to meaning and purpose. So the stories that we have told or not told bear some of the responsibility for our current condition. So, for example, the Song of Amergin provokes us to think about our interconnectedness with animal life and elemental natural forces. By contrast, our Celtic Tiger period provoked us to consider expansion, conspicuous consumption, the kind of exploitation of natural and human resources which encourages rather than prevents the kind of social inequality which we're facing today. I also think it's interesting how much language reveals. So the peak economic expansion of recent Ireland is called the Celtic Tiger. And of course, tigers are not native to our country. Folk tales remember, says Moriarty. So much of Irish history and culture remains just partially visible, encoded in what survives of our language, our rituals, our landscape. There is a unique way of seeing in this country, but it has been obscured by layer upon layer of modernity, a modernity which may make our lives more superficially comfortable, but ultimately cannot erase the lingering sense of disconnection from the mythological, ancestral and ecological past from which our culture emerged. There are innumerable world religions and spiritual traditions which cohere around a sense of connection with something greater than ourselves, be that a god, a cosmos, a spirit realm, or the natural world. In One Evening in Eden, John speaks about the idea that there may be one spirit, but that it wears many masks, in which case we have the spirit that we try to connect to here, and it's wearing the mask of our mythology. He says in Ireland from the beginning it is philomythically that we have been philosophical. So we explore through the use of myth, not necessarily through the use of rational methodological thinking. Athens has Socrates, Plato and Aristotle. France has Abelard, Descartes and Sartre. Germany has Kant, Schopenhauer and Nietzsche. England has Bacon, Locke and Hobbes. Ireland has Menanon, Courroy and Grania. This festival gathers us together at the biographical root of Moriarty's story, and from this root he was first nourished by local stories, then nourished by education, then nourished by an outer and inner journey. London, Leeds, Greece, Mexico, Canada, the Grand Canyon. These distances travelled outward are almost trivial by comparison to the distance travelled inward and downward into the depths of his own psyche. Part challenge, part invitation, John asks us to do likewise as individuals and as a society. There is, I think we all realise there's nothing mysterious about this. We don't need to aspire to the status of a mystic or an ascetic to know that there is a fundamental dissatisfaction which permeates society, and contemporary society in particular. Biologically speaking, all nourishment begins in the soil under the ground. Perhaps psychologically speaking, healing begins under history, under the temporary geopolitical status of a given time. In Ireland, we do have a dream time, and this is where we must travel to in order to meet with our origins, to reckon with who we are, and to consider where we're going. Just to conclude, I want to make an observation about this phrase that Jesus speaks during the crucifixion. He says, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." One interpretation of that is they don't realize that they're crucifying God's Son. Another interpretation is a literal one. They don't know what they're doing. Do we know what we're doing? Do we know why we do what we do? I think John offers us a way to think about that, particularly from the Irish perspective. And I'd just like to conclude, very often he's withholding from prescribing a course of action. But this one gets close to that, again from Invoking Ireland. Instead of a legal constitution to be interpreted for huge sums of money by lawyers, let us have a constitution of stories, a genome of stories, to be interpreted for nothing by poets. Garflagwith.
In invoking Ireland, we are seeking to evoke it. In invoking it, we are seeking to call it into being. And how better to call it into being than to call it into an image or an archetype of itself. The image or archetype I see neither to name nor to define, but I do seek to suggest it in a safari of stories. In our journey inland, we do have to reckon with the cormorants and the boar and the bear and the badger, the wolf and the fox and the carrion crow and the hawk and the stag and the goat out of our underworld with spectral terrors, cat-like in form and ferocity, all of them instinctively in ourselves as well as actually in the land. Here, in this safari, into the centre, we seek to deal with them not murderously, but orphically, like the beautiful Liam O'Wayne Lee's harp plays its orphic note around this country. And living with them in great ecumen. In Ireland call it Enfla. In English call it the bird rain. It seems the great opportunity is to celebrate the man, and locally the man has to be celebrated. To all those that know him, knew him, worked with him, and to all of us whose work impacted us all so much. And the temptation is there to celebrate the man, and Manacon spoke about that last night. The temptation is always there to celebrate the man. The opportunity, not the responsibility, but the opportunity is to take John's work and initiate its next steps on his behalf. His skull scarta that he could see so clearly, that we take that into our own work, we take it into our own practices, we take it into our own words, and that we live from that point of view. That is just a possibility. But nevertheless, it is a great opportunity.
I am very grateful and very humbled to have been welcomed into this land and to be given the opportunity to share my song with you. Ever since the beginning of this weekend on Friday afternoon, I have felt a very strong presence, the presence of my grandmother. And my grandmother has been speaking to me all throughout yesterday and this morning. And so I'm going to sing her favorite song, the song that she taught me, and it is a song that I almost never sing in public, but it's a song that I have known since I can remember. It's a song that is very simple, but holds enormous emotion. The words are so bare that the first stanza even lacks a verb. It paints an image of a broad field in the middle of the summer, the air trembling, and across that field, a young woman walks wearing a flaming red skirt. And she walks across the field into its midst. And there, a stone well holds crystal clear water. She died Studánečka kamenná, v širém poli studánečka kamenná. A v ní voda, voděnka, a v ní voda studená. A v ní voda, voděnka, a v ní voda studená. Išla dívča, išla v sukni červenej. Išla dívča, išla v sukni červenej. Podaj ty ňažo hajku, podaj vody studenej. Podaj ty ňažo hajku, podaj vody studenej. Širém poli studánečka Drevnile Magov.
Got the men going anyway.
I think we'll go out into the sun, will we?
Yeah.
And commune as we should. All of your stories, it's an interesting place to be up on the stage, when I know that if we just sat in circle and told our stories and our relationships, we'd all be enthralled with each other every bit as much as we'd be enthralled with An Túsala, Mainly and Manacán and Grace and all of these very generous people who've come down. Let's do that next year. That's great. That's a great shout. We can find a big enough field in my van. We'll take that. And the weather will look after us, I've no doubt. I've no doubt. Amanda, is there anything which you would like to... We'll finish with that. Of course, there was a plan, Amanda, wasn't there? There was a plan. There was a plan.
Sorry, was there a plan?
Mahu Diarmid. Fair play, right.
As I, in a few sentences, give you, each one of you, your biography, that I will tell you who in your depths you are. We know who we are sociologically, don't we? I mean, I have a job. I am a husband. I'm a wife. I'm a nun, I'm a priest, I'm a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker. I work with this and I live here and these are my neighbours and I go here for my holidays. That's who I am sociologically, isn't it? Now, who am I higher and deeper than who I am sociologically? Is there a me that is deeper than who I am sociologically? Now, can I just tell you who you are in those places that are deeper than who you are sociologically? Will you just listen as I speak it to you? And I'll be talking, this is Olive Fowler talking, my house is mirrored in Linfake. I will change that now and talk to each one of you. Whoever you are in this audience, your house is mirrored in Linfake. In a sense, therefore, you sleep in Linfake, you dream in Linfake. At a sleeping depth of you that you're not aware of. Maybe you are a salmon in Linfake, and maybe you swim upstream every night all the way up into the other world well, all the way up into Necton's well. At that depth of yourself, maybe the shadows of the other world hazel are always upon you, are always upon all of us, letting wisdom and wonder drop down into us. That, in very deep place within you, is who each of you is. Every night, unknown to consciousness and conscious inspection, you are a salmon in Linfake. You swim up to the other world well. The hazel that overgrows that well drops kernels of wisdom and wonder down into you. That is who you are. Not through curriculum vitae, not who your society knows you to be, not who you yourself, in complicity with your society, in culpable complicity with your society and your surroundings, know yourself to be. So, if we did know this about ourselves, and we began to live from this reach of ourselves, then in some way, I think we couldn't be corrupted by society. We would find ourselves walking much more often in the woods and not listening to the news at 9 and the same news at 10 and the same news with another disaster at 11. We would be able to separate ourselves from who we sociologically are. We would be able to redeem ourselves and to liberate ourselves from who we sociologically are. I went out to the hazelwood because a fire was in my head and plucked and peeled a hazel wand and hooked a berry to a thread. And when white moths were on the wing and moth like stars were flickering out, I cast the berry in a stream and caught a little silver thread. When I had laid it on the floor, I went to blow the fire aflame, but something rustled on the floor and someone called me by my name. It had become a glimmering girl with apple blossom in her hair, who called me by my name and ran and faded through the brightening air. Though I am old with wandering through hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find out where she has gone and kiss her lips and take her hands and walk among long dappled grass and pluck till time and times are done. The silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun. And going to work in Connemara sometimes, if someone asked me, where are you off to this morning, John? I'd say, well, maybe I'm going to work in Listabrook, but in a deeper sense, I'm following the girl with apple blossom in her hair. And it's an awful calamity, like, to never follow the girl with apple blossom in her hair. So who am I in Foxrock? Who am I in the highest house in Hull's? Who am I in my £5 million house going up by £100 every week? Who am I in Crumlin? Who am I in the square in Tana? But we can get all too weary of who we are in those places. But a freshness will come into our lives the day we ask ourselves, who am I in the Hazelwood? Go into the Hazelwood because the fire is in your head. Who are you in the Hazelwood?
We just want to finish by saying a big thank you to everybody without naming anybody. The backroom teams that without whom this couldn't have happened. Pixie, that was just wonderful, and thank you for blessing the end of this festival with that beautiful film. We want to thank everybody for the generosity of spirit, of sharing, and of making this a wonderful and heartfelt event. Thank you so much, because without each of you, this couldn't have happened. God bless.